Hi, I am the Apostle Brady Lee Hess. Good day to the rest of you forever. The job of apostles has always been to correct errors in the church. This has been the case since the time the New Testament was written. One common error in the church is the teachings of John Calvin, or otherwise called Calvinism. There are 5 points to Calvinism, which I will sum up by saying that they all teach that we have no will of our own. They like to use the word sovereign, that God is sovereign and controls everything that happens. And God has already decided who's going to heaven and who's going to hell, and it is not up for us to choose one or the other. A Calvinist believes that God causes him or her to sin because they have no choice of their own in the matter. This is blasphemy, a serious sin. They leave out the word foreknow or foreknowledge. God foreknows who will choose him and who won't. In Romans 8:29 it says, "For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son." God foreknows who will follow him, and those he predestinates to certain blessings in eternity. The Calvinists get this mixed up and believe that we are predestined. Everything we do is predestined, that we have no choice, and we are predestined to either be saved or sent to hell. Joshua 24:15 states, "Choose this day whom ye will serve." We have choices to make. When you tell a Calvinist that they feel they have a license to sin because God causes them to sin, they will turn around and say that your sin is the only thing that you own. And this is very illogical. And also, if you show them evidence from Scripture that we have choices to make, they will turn around and say that we have choices to make. And this is not fit with the 5 points of Calvinism. In Romans chapter 7, the Apostle Paul talks about the struggle a believer has with sin and the flesh which causes sin. He says that the spirit struggles against the flesh, and we do things that we don't want to do. Our spirit tells us not to, but we do them anyway because the flesh makes us do them. Especially in verse 20, he basically says that he is not really responsible for his sin because his flesh makes him do it. But there are consequences for sin, so we avoid sin because we fear God. In Job 28:28, it says that the fear of the Lord is wisdom. We fear God because there are consequences for doing wrong or sinning. Oftentimes, the Calvinists will say they have a reverent fear, but they don't really even reverence God. They accuse him of being responsible for their sin, which is not reverence. Free will is a precious gift from God. We have the right to make decisions on our own that are allowed by God, and we have a limited free will We have certain choices we can make, but if we get too far out of line, God will punish us or prevent us from making certain choices. God has limited free will. It says in the New Testament that it is impossible for God to tell a lie. We can rely on his promises that he will keep them. And God will not go against his own nature. So God can do basically whatever he wants within certain limits. And we are created in God's image, so we can do likewise. At the resurrection, we will be made perfect, and we'll have many choices that we don't have now because God will be able to trust us since we will no longer sin. I think it may be very difficult for some people to grasp the idea of free will. To me, the idea that God could create beings that could either choose him or reject him is very hard to fathom. It is like trying to understand infinity. Trying to think about infinity, I think, well, the universe has to end somewhere. But then what's after that? It just doesn't make sense to my finite mind, but I think at the resurrection, God will show me more about it so I will understand it. Well, that's about all I had to say about that. May God richly bless you, my beloved.